You are listening to the Keep the Weight Off podcast with Dr. Angela, episode number 5.
Welcome to the Keep the Weight Off podcast, where we bust all the dieting myths and discover not just how to lose weight, but more importantly, how to keep it off. We go way beyond the food, and we use science and psychology to give you strategies that work. And now your host, Dr. Angela Zechmann.
Well, hello, friends, and welcome back to the podcast. I'm so glad to be here with you today, wherever you are, whatever you're doing. I hope you're having a great day. I just took a little walk run, and the endorphins have been flying. And I have to say, I just feel great today. So today I wanted to talk to you a little bit about the food industry in the United States. And this is going to be the first of a series of episodes because I really want you to understand the deliberate things that the food industry is doing to make sure that we buy their products. And my whole goal in this is to really help you to stop blaming yourself. Okay? So many people who struggle with their weight blame themselves. And what I want you to understand is that there's a food industry that is out of control, unmonitored, and does not have your best interest at heart. And so I want you to know what they're doing. Now, don't get me wrong here. I have no problem with a company doing what it needs to do to maximize their profits. But when this is happening at the expense of public health, I have a real problem with that. Okay. So that's exactly what's going on with the food industry in the United States. And I think other countries, European countries, Canada, other countries seem to have a much better handle on this. The government is serving as a better watchdog in other countries, but not here where I live in the US. So if you want to learn more about this, I have several books and a documentary that I'd recommend, and I'm going to put all of those in the show notes for you so you don't have to write them down right now. The first is a documentary called Fed Up, and documentary came out in 2014. It's produced by the famous television journalist Katie Couric. She's one of the co-producers, and it's available on Amazon Prime at the time that I'm recording this podcast. It's an awesome documentary. It really helps you understand what's going on with our children. And I recommend it to all of my patients and online clients. The moment that they start, listening to me, it's like, you got to go watch Fed Up because you got to know what's going on in this country. Okay. I also have a few books to recommend. The first is a book called Salt, Sugar, Fat by Michael Moss. And I'm actually going to read you some quotes from this book a little bit later. I found this book absolutely fascinating, as Michael has interviewed food scientists at major food corporations, and he spills all their secrets. And I can't believe some of the stuff that they're doing. So I'm going to discuss some of those secrets with you today. Another book that I'd recommend is called Fat Chance, and this one is by Dr. Robert Lustig, Lustig. Robert Lustig is a pediatric endocrinologist, and he's actually my personal hero because he really, really helps us understand what sugar is doing to our bodies. So what I'm going to teach you in this series is information that I've learned from these teachers of mine and others, as well as what I've learned in my own experience. Okay? So what you need to know is that the food industry has a ton of tricks up their sleeve to get you to spend your hard-earned money on their products. And they fall into 3 general categories. They're going to try to get you to crave their food. They're going to lure you with convenience. And they're going to try to hook children early with children's products. So I'll talk about each of those in a separate podcast. But today I'm going to talk about how they get you with cravings. Okay? Now, the executives at high levels of the various food conglomerates are going to benefit greatly. In other words, sell lots more of their products if they can get you to crave it, right? That makes sense, right? So remember, we heard from Marshall last week, and Marshall said that she'd been wanting to get off sugar for years. She actually got hooked as a baby on Jell-O because her mother was mixing Jell-O powder in with her water in her bottle, right? So she got hooked at a very young age, and she wanted to get off sugar for many years, but she had a hard time imagining not being able to have her coffee and her coffee creamer every morning. So the coffee creamer that Marshall was using was Nestle French Vanilla Creamer. So I checked the ingredients in this product. Of course, I have to know everything, right? The first ingredient is water. The second ingredient is sugar. The third ingredient is vegetable oil. And then there's a whole bunch of other ingredients that you can't even pronounce unless you're a chemist. But there's actually no real cream in this stuff. Imagine that, like no real cream in that coffee creamer. And so remember what Marshall said. She said for years, she felt helpless when she thought about having to do without her creamer. And as a matter of fact, when the pandemic hit, she said she was worried that there would be a run on coffee creamer the way there had been a run on toilet paper. And so she asked her husband to stock up on bottles of the coffee creamer when he was at Costco. And that's when she knew she might have a problem. She also said that drinking coffee was essentially an excuse to be drinking the creamer. So you heard all of this, right? If you didn't hear last week's podcast, listen to it, Marshall's story, okay? So if you look at the food label on that coffee creamer, each tablespoon of this creamer has about 5 grams of sugar. So if you add a quarter of a cup of this creamer to your coffee, that's basically 20 grams of sugar. That's a lot of sugar. And this is just one example. But Marshall and I have discovered that lots of people really struggle with these coffee creamers. It is amazing. And if you're one of them, I'd love it if you'd go to the show notes at journeybeyondweightloss.com, episode number 5, and leave me a comment and let me know if the coffee creamers have gotten you too. Because really, the food industry has done a brilliant job here of manufacturing something that is totally unnecessary and yet highly addictive. They had to get the sweetness just right. They had to get the flavoring just right. And think about it. How do you suppose that they did this? Well, Michael Moss gives us the answer in his book, Salt, Sugar, Fat. Because what the food industry does is they hire food scientists. Basically, they're food engineers. And the job of these food scientists is to experiment with ingredients and experiment with people and optimize the sugar content and the flavorings and the mouthfeel of their products to create this optimal experience for the consumer, which they actually have nicknamed the bliss point. Okay, that's BLISS, bliss point. I want you to remember that. And I want you to think about what it might take to optimize the bliss point. Okay, so here's what they do. So Michael Moss interviewed a food scientist, and his name is Howard Moskowitz, or Moskowitz. And he had been responsible for engineering foods for companies like Campbell Soup, for General Foods, for Kraft, for PepsiCo, and many others. And here's an excerpt from the book, Salt, Sugar, Fat. In the lingo of product developers, Moskowitz's stock in the trade is known as optimization. And he's not bashful in chronicling his deeds. I've optimized soups, I've optimized pizzas, I've optimized salad dressings and pickles. In this field, I'm a game changer. That's a quote from Moskowitz. Now, Moskowitz used this technique to determine the highly profitable formula for cherry vanilla Dr. Pepper, which has been hugely popular and has made its parent company billions of dollars since 2004 when the product was first introduced. So here's how he did it, and this is another excerpt from the book. He varied the different ingredients and then tested them on thousands of consumers. To optimize cherry vanilla Dr. Pepper, he tested 62 distinct formulas, 31 for the regular version and 30 for the diet version. The formulas were then presented to the tasters, and Moskowitz's system is specifically designed to engage the tasters and convince them of the seriousness of the test. We don't let them talk. The rooms look professional with nice computers. These are not junky places we have. The people are paid well, and the moderator will tell them there is no talking or discussing the products. They have to turn off their cell phones. They start to feel like their opinions count. Starting on July 12th, 2004, in LA, Dallas, Chicago, and Philadelphia, the Dr. Pepper tasters began working through their samples, resting 5 minutes between each sip to restore their taste buds. After each sample, they answered a set of questions. How much did they like it overall? 0 was hated it, 100 was loved it. How strong is the taste? How do they feel about the taste? How would they describe the quality of this product? And perhaps the most important of all, how likely would they be to purchase this product? From definitely would buy to definitely would not buy. The scores are then added up. A score of 60 suggests the product will sell well. 14 of Moskowitz's variations scored 61 or better, with 2 at 67 and 2 at a spectacular 70. Moreover, more than half of the panelists said that they would definitely buy the product, which in food marketing surveys is considered a terrific result. So all of these opinions are logged, and then the data is spilled into a computer program that spits out the winner. The biggest hits, be they Coca-Cola or Doritos or Kraft Velveeta Cheesy Skillets dinner kits, owe their success to formulas that pique the taste buds enough to be alluring, but don't have a distinct overriding single flavor that says to the brain, enough already. So, do you get this? Essentially, Howard Moskowitz and other food scientists engineer food products, and they know exactly how to do it so that you can't stop eating or drinking their perfectly highly addictive products. So this is why Marshall couldn't imagine her life without Nestle French vanilla coffee creamer and was concerned about shortages when the COVID crisis hit. Another example of an engineered food product is Cheetos popcorn, flaming hot flavored. My daughter's friends brought these over one night, and they couldn't stop raving about them. They actually tried to get me to try it too. And I said, hey, no thanks, but let's chalk one up for the Frito-Lay food engineers because they found a winner. Really hitting that bliss point very nicely. So I looked at the ingredients of the Cheetos popcorn, and the ingredients say it doesn't have any more than 1% sugar in it. And yet, the third ingredient is maltodextrin, which is a sugar. It's a form of sugar that actually gets digested and lands in your bloodstream faster than table sugar. And in my experience, anything with maltodextrin in it makes me crazy with cravings. So you might want to check your favorite foods. Check those foods that you find yourself craving and see if there's any maltodextrin or any other form of sugar in them. It's likely that the food engineers at Frito-Lay or Kraft or General Foods or PepsiCo have been working very hard to make sure that your bliss point is being triggered by these products. So you are going to be craving it with a capital C. So that's the first C, craving. Find the bliss point. The Bliss Point creates billions of dollars for the food industry and billions of pounds of fat for their consumers. I hope this makes sense to you. My job here is to help you stop blaming yourself and begin to recognize that essentially we are all pawns of a very deliberate attempt by the food industry to get us hooked on their products. Cigarette manufacturers did the exact same thing until they were stopped by a political force that was stronger, and we started educating people. Okay, so I want you to consider this to be the beginning of your education. So please share this podcast with anyone and everyone that you think will benefit. Head on over to journeybeyondweightloss.com/5 and leave me a comment. Have the food engineers managed to take your brain over with cravings for stuff that triggers your bliss point? I'd love to know. And I'd love to know what you plan to do with this information now that you understand it. Remember, there's a reason that you crave macaroni and cheese made by Kraft, and you don't crave chicken and broccoli. This is why. The food engineers know exactly what they're doing. Now, if you'd like more help with this, just sign up for my free course. It's called The 4 Stages of Weight Mastery, and it's available at JourneyBeyondWeightLoss.com. And I will see you next week. Take care, everyone. Bye.
Hey, if you really want to lose weight and keep it off for good, your next step is to sign up for Dr. Angela's free weight loss course, where you're going to learn everything you need to get started on your weight loss journey the right way. Just head over to JourneyBeyondWeightLoss.com/free course to sign up. Also, it would be awesome if you could take a few moments and write a review on iTunes. Thanks, and we'll see you in Journey Beyond Weight Loss.